Oh, thank you. I'd like to start this session with one of my favorite stories. So it's 1913, and in the Provence region of France, a young man is trekking solo through the wilderness. But he's getting quite anxious now. He's been walking for days, but now he's lost. And he's running short of food, and he's in search of water. But all he finds is a desolate landscape, and he comes across some crumbling old buildings and a dried-up well. Now, thankfully, in the nick of time, he meets a shepherd. This shepherd's not the chatty type, but he takes him in, gives him food, water, and shelter for the night. The next morning, they're bidding their farewells, and the shepherd goes off to do his business. But this traveller is very curious what this quite mercurial shepherd's up to. So he follows him at a distance and sees, somewhat to his amazement, that this shepherd is planting trees. So he goes up to him and asks, what are you doing? Have you got permission to plant? And the answer was no. He doesn't know whose land it was. Are you told or tasked by anyone to plant these trees? Again, no. It was a simple, solitary pursuit. So this traveller goes back to normal life, serves in World War I, comes back to recuperate, and is already astounded to see a very different landscape. And over the years of this story, the traveller keeps returning back to that region, and it closes up at the end of World War II. And so not only is it a completely different environmental landscape with lush forests, it's also a changed human landscape with thousands returning and flocking back to the region now that water flows once more and the wind howls a bit less. So that story is The Man Who Planted Trees by Jean Genot, originally published in 1953. And as well as an environmental story, it's obviously a metaphor about how all individuals and people can make a difference by themselves. So before I get into talking a bit more about how we all, as companies, can make a difference, I wanted to just illustrate the problem at hand. The video behind me is playing the average annual global temperatures since the Industrial Revolution, or the 1880s. Now, that said, Industrial Revolution has brought, unbelievable benefits to humanity, such as increased living standards, life expectancy, and convenience. But we've also placed tremendous pressure on the planet, and our activities have released greenhouse gases, which are leading to global warming. The IPCC, which is the UN climate body, have said that we should try and keep the world to no more than 1.5 degrees of warming compared to pre-industrial times. Last year, we were 1.45 degrees, so without urgent and dramatic intervention, we will overshoot that. Again, the IPCC have said that at a 1.5 degree world, 20 to 30% of species may struggle to survive. At a 2 degree world, most ecosystems will struggle. Now, this all seems incredibly far removed and remote from you running your business today. And indeed, there was a survey out in 2022 which said that 91% of UK small businesses were overwhelmed by this topic of climate change and did not know where to start. And worse still, 56% said it was too late to reverse the damage. But the reality is that if the UK is going to hit its 2050 net zero goals, every business will play a part. After all, UK SMEs are 99% of businesses, and it's been estimated that they represent about half of industry or business-based emissions. And, like it or not, change is coming. I'm sure many of you in this room have been asked by your customers about your environmental performance and how you're tracking. And I'll give you one example from our own industry. So I chair a cross-industry forum of leading UK telecoms providers who've come together to collaborate on decarbonisation. Last year, we surveyed our members, and 30% of them already have climate change clauses in their contracts with customers, so with very specific requirements to reduce their emissions, and a further 60% either intend to do the same or already engage with their suppliers in non-contractual ways around the topic of climate. And luckily, there is help at hand. So last year, the same aforementioned group, it's called the Digital Connectivity Forum, we came together and we published some guidance. This is free, simple, and very accessible ways to explain how any company in the telecoms firm can start on their journey towards net zero. And I'm also delighted to say that we've been working with the Business Climate Hub, which is a UK government portal, and soon we'll be publishing, again, some more free resources with a dedicated sector around IT and telecoms. For this session today, we've planted a tree for every single attendee that's with us. A bit like the taciturn shepherd at the beginning of this story, the first tree is planted, but now all of us can continue to plant those metaphorical trees. And I hope that together we can build a forest of positive change. But to provide some further inspiration about what's possible, I'll shortly be joined on stage by two leading companies in this sector. They'll explain both a bit more about why they're taking action on the planet and also how this action is leading to tangible financial business benefits. So please welcome on stage Camilla Khan from WedSquid and Dave Rogers from Planet Telecom. I know it's bright, isn't it?
I'm going to go in the middle.
Right, Dave, thank you. Camilla, thank you. You're very, very welcome. If I could ask you each just to introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and particularly why you're inspired to take action. So if I can start with yourself, Camilla.
Yeah, my name is Camilla. I work for WedSquid with an MSP with a focus on IT and security, and I've been there for around 5 years. And at my time at WedSquid, I have been leading the sustainability journey that we have been on, which started in 2021 when we became carbon neutral. And thereafter, we started the transformation to become a certified B Corp, which we achieved in the early parts of this year. So I think what really motivates me personally is that over the last few years, I have been through tons of partner events like today. And we always talk about the same thing. It's about innovation, it's about growth, and it's about these changes we are making to businesses and the customers that we have to take them through the digital transformation. But what I find really interesting is that whenever we talk about this innovation and growth, no one ever mentions about the sustainable impacts we have when doing so. So what I think would be really interesting to hear from the networks and suppliers and the products that we roll out is, how do they plan to roll out AI? How do they manage the data centers? What kind of water do they use to cool them? When we're rolling out fiber across the country into rural areas, it's great. But have we thought about how we are impacting the biodiversity in that area and leading microplastic into our groundwater? So I think until we start that conversation as an industry, there's really so much more we can do. And I find that very interesting.
That sounds excellent. It's a very worthy endeavour. So Dave, can I ask the same question to yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Dave Rogers. I've been in the telecoms industry now for a little over 30 years. I started Planet just under a year ago now. We're a voice, data, mobile telephony provider, like a lot of the room are as well. What motivated me down this journey? Well, it was really simple, really. I thought that when I started, if I was going to start a new business, I wanted to have the least amount of impact on the planet, no pun intended there, by the way, to have the least amount of impact on it. And I just thought it was the sensible thing to do. There's lots of talk about it in the news, but I just thought, well, actually, let's look into it and ensure that we do the right thing. And it was just a conscious decision to make because I thought it was the right thing to do. I'm no massive activist or anything, but it just thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, no, sounds spot on. And Camilla, what are the business benefits you found so far in engaging on climate and broader social issues?
I think there's massive benefits to the business, but what would probably interest a lot of people in the room today is the financial benefits of it. So at WedSquid, we are on a massive growth journey and have made 3 acquisitions in the last 7 months. And what we really do as a part of that journey is implement sustainability into it, which means as a part of the B Corp certification we have achieved, it takes away half the market. So if the business is not sustainable or doesn't think about the culture and the community around them, that would change the conversation that we are having with them. And as a privately owned company, which we are at the moment, then we changed our lending provider last year to change these fundraisings, and we went with a new bank who's also a B Corp. And it means that the conversations have changed on a financial perspective, and it's not just about growth and profits, it's about purpose in line with profit, which means that we can grow in a sustainable way, where we can think not just about our people internally, but also the businesses that we bring on board, as well as our customers and the environment.
It sounds fantastic. I mean, so to kind of paraphrase, you're accessing new lending and funding opportunities by being a bit differentiated and by being a green company.
Yeah, and it's starting a lot of a new conversation. So as I'm sure that many of you are, as well as speaking to PE houses and different kinds of investment, it's a very saturated market. There's a lot of us out there. There's about 13,000 MSPs in the UK. And you got to do something to be different. And as Dave says, do the right thing as we grow. Yeah. So bringing sustainability into our journey as a part of our DNA in the way that we make business decisions, it has opened up for a new series of conversations. It's new partners that we are talking to and new funding available.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I guess one thing that I've certainly found speaking via our sales guys to many of our customers that are in the room today is that they've got lots of new RFPs, bids, tenders where this comes up. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you've experienced as well for either of you?
It's been around for a little while, for sure. Yeah, and it's normally something that people just skip past, right? Yeah. It's the bit that doesn't need to be filled out. Yeah. But yes, it's in there, and it's in there for a reason. So.
Yeah. Okay. And Dave, just coming to you then about you've started a brand new company. So tell us, I guess, the honest view of the pros and the cons, or the challenges and the opportunities of being green from the get-go.
Yeah. Well, I had hoped it'd be the easier thing to do. And I guess it actually is, right? Because I'm creating new processes, designing the business from the ground up. And I guess it is easier to do that with sustainability in mind straight away, because I'm not having to redesign all the backhaul systems and changing all the processes and the day-to-day activity. However, I did find it very frustrating. And I found it frustrating because there's lots of chatter about it, but there's not a lot of meaningful support out there, or certainly I found initially. A lot of the companies that I went and talked to, B Corp was one of them, and I think it's a fantastic organisation, and we will be going through B Corp shortly. People like Greenlee and all the other people I spoke to said, look, we love the fact that you're looking to do it day one, but go away and come back and see us in a year's time. And the reason I said a year was that it's all about measurement. All right, you need to understand what your carbon footprint is. And as a brand new startup company, they said, so what is your carbon? Well, it isn't anything at the moment, right? So that was a little frustrating because there wasn't a lot of support for new start businesses. So we've had to create all that ourselves. Eventually found a consultant, independent consultant, that we're working very closely with to put our sustainability policy in place and ensure that, as Camilla absolutely said, to make it part of our DNA from the get-go, and he helped us put that together. I also found it rather frustrating in talking to all of our wholesale partners out in the marketplace as well. And one of the questions I asked every one of them that I partnered with was, now we're getting this relationship put together, introduce me to your sustainability officer, because I will want a conversation about it, right? Scope 3, which is you guys, right? Our supply chain is the biggest contributor to your carbon footprint, all right? And almost none of them said to me, oh yeah, here they are. And I found that very frustrating. Some big players out there that aren't doing it. I guess it's my little plug to you guys. That when I had the same conversation with my account manager, they immediately put me into you guys. It was very heartening that we actually could start getting some meaningful conversations together. So yeah, lots of chatter, not a lot of action.
Yeah, and actually I was just thinking as you were talking, both of you, probably should do a glossary of a couple of terms so that people know. Could one of you describe what B Corp is for the audience? Maybe Camilla, if you...
So B Corp is, my way of describing it is a bit of a modern way of an ISO certification. It's a community of businesses that's trying to be a force for good. So it evaluates your entire ESG profile from your governance, anything legal, your environment, your customers, and your people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then also for anyone, I guess Scope 3. No, of course. We've got even more acronyms than the telco industry, which is hard to do. But that is in effect, if your Scope 1 and 2 is your direct operations, you imagine typically your offices and manufacturing plants that you directly own. Scope 3 is really everything that makes up the product you sell. So you need your suppliers on the one hand, and they create emissions in the products, and then also your customers create emissions in using the products. So the idea of Scope 3 is to give a holistic picture. Camilla, just to talk a bit more about actual tangible actions. So what actions have you taken that you could share with the audience?
Yeah. So what we have done a whole lot of things, because nothing comes easy and you can't get sustainable overnight. So what I find when you don't know what to do is just do something. So we started absolutely in the small about getting rid of single-use plastic in the office. So we have changed our fleets of cars to electric. We have evaluated the way that we work from home and how we drive together. So it starts from the small on what you can do, and then just collecting that data and getting your Scope 1, 2, and 3 and see what you put out in the world is a massive start. The planting scheme is great. We have enforced this, so whenever we get an NPS survey or feedback from our customers, we plant a tree. Customers love it, and it's a nice little thing you can do, which starts small.
That's brilliant. No, thank you, Camilla. And I guess big blockbuster question for both of you. If there's one key message or takeaway for this audience that you'd like to leave with the audience, what would that be? And maybe if I start with yourself, Dave.
Okay, I would say simply get involved. Okay? We're all in the same position. It can seem as if it's a little bit daunting, right? It's big change. And actually, we all look at it and think, well, actually, what would my company make a difference with, right? So, surely my company making these changes isn't going to make any difference. However, it is, right? And we need to get involved, and we need to actually do something, right? What I would say is that, and what I found is that individually, it seems very daunting in terms of the impact that we're doing. However, collectively, as an industry, we need to come together, because this isn't something that is although it is you could say it's a competitive advantage. The reality is that it's more important than that, right? So everybody should be involved in this. Everybody should have this as part of it, because it makes a massive difference. So my element to this is as an industry, we need to take this seriously. We need to come together to ensure that we're asking the right questions. Wholesale companies are acting and dealing in the correct manners, and they are responsible and measurable. So please get involved.
Fantastic call to arms. Camilla.
Yes, well, great advice for Dave. So I think what I would add to that is that it would be great for us to come together, and we have to continue to stay competitive and do good for the world. I'd really love to see the networks and the suppliers to get involved. So kind of hoping that everybody continues to talk about it, that we can recruit a little bit like the cyber criminals we heard about earlier, so that if every comms provider and every MSP out there go out and ask their suppliers about what are they doing, that hopefully they could start some internal conversations on a big scale about that it's something we actually do need to invest in, and a change we do need to have, so we can be innovative in more than one area.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Dave and Camilla. And I think just to wrap up, we've got a few actions on the screen, and I hope that this session has provided some inspiration for you, either to start addressing your environmental impact, or indeed to continue to drive down and reduce your carbon footprint. I'm delighted to also announce now that we are starting from next month, and for every month for the rest of the year, for our partner program members, monthly webinars and or in-person events where we're going to continue this conversation, really help you in tackling some of these issues. So I really look forward to meeting and talking to many of you then. Thank you very much, and I'll pass you over to Paul Smith.